That night, the electricity went off. The home was plunged into silent darkness. With a towel around my body, I groped my way into the bedroom. In that quiet, "William," I believed I had reached my husband's bed. I called out quietly many times and received no response. I softly stroked his shoulder, but then a powerful force pushed me down into the bed. William pulled me down, his hot breath blowing across my skin. In the darkness, all of my senses appeared to be heightened. I could feel the warmth in his body and his powerful but yearning moves. A sense of timidity and trembling went throughout my body, like an electric current flowing down my spine. The way he caressed me, the way his body crushed against mine, seemed to draw my entire mind into a hazy zone where I could only feel and hear my heartbeat. I struggled somewhat, wanting to say something, but the words remained lodged in my throat. That was also the point at which I was introduced to previously unknown band stories. Secrets were progressively disclosed, drawing me into a whirlpool of emotions, remorse, and connections that should not exist. It all began on that fateful night. Hello, everyone. My name is Sophia, and I am a 30-year-old lady with modest hopes of having a happy household. My life has been full of ups and downs and tough decisions, but I feel I found my destiny when I met William. I am currently living with him, a mature guy over 50 years old, and Luke, his son, who turns 24 this year. This is the family I've always wanted to establish. William is a man who, simply by being with me, provides the safety and calm that I have been seeking. Despite being almost 50 years old, he retains his calm, serenity, and deep view on life. Years of being a single parent have taught William a special patience, and I can feel his unbounded love for his family. William not only really loves me, but he also strives to be an excellent husband and parent. He frequently cooks in his leisure time, cleans the house, and even recalls my little interests, such as my like for hydrangeas or my fixation with old films. This makes me feel more valued and cherished than ever. Lucas William Stepson is another individual who impressed me. Lucas is already 24 years old and has a lovely look, as well as an impressive height and muscular build. He is a young man full of vigor, who is considerably more mature than his age. When I first moved in with Lucas, I couldn't help but fear that he'd feel distant or have trouble accepting a stepmother. In stark contrast to that concern, Lucas was extremely personable and likable. He constantly kept a courteous demeanor, even calling me Sophia in a loving tone to bridge the space between us. I was overjoyed during my first few days living with this modest household. In the morning, the entire family gathered at the dining table. William frequently prepared coffee for me, and Lucas never forgot to assist me in making breakfast. The lively jokes during the lunch reminded me how fortunate I was to be a part of this household. In the evenings, we'd relax in the living room and tell each other about our days. Lucas would discuss his job and future aspirations, and William would grin and listen to his son with pride in his eyes. Looking at them, I felt the familial connection I had always desired. William was always willing to assist me in acclimating to my life. He was not hesitant to express affection in front of his kid, such as holding my hand every time we watched a movie together or gently adjusting the scarf on my shoulder when it was chilly. These tiny things made me feel cherished and safe. I was also relieved that Lucas didn't feel uneasy about our closeness. He even joked that Dad had finally found someone who understood how to handle this grouchy old man. As the days passed, I kept convincing myself that I had found the proper spot to stop. William and Lucas made me feel like I was part of a real family, with constant love and care. But gradually, a sense of unease began to emerge inside me. At first, I couldn't think of a name. It was simply that when I was alone, my heart felt heavy, like there was something wrong. I attempted to avoid it, convincing myself that I was probably simply fatigued or stressed from my new life. But as time passed, that feeling got stronger, like if something inside me wanted to erupt and be freed. One afternoon, while killing time on Facebook, I came across an article discussing the physiology of men and women in marriage. Every phrase in the essay seemed to resonate with me, explaining precisely what I was going through. The essay discussed the changes in married life as personal times grew less common. It shows that a lack of closeness can not only dull a relationship, but also cause unstable emotions, unnamed anxieties. Reading this, I was amazed. It turns out that was the source of my uneasy sensations. William and I have not shared any intimate moments in a long time. We still love and care for each other, but the deep physical connection has faded, swept away by the rush and bustle of life. When William was at work in the evenings, I would bury my head in books or talk on the phone to fill the gap. We spoke and discussed that day, but there were no more intimate gestures like previously. After reading the essay, I concluded that it must be the case. Perhaps my discomfort stemmed from a lack of familiarity with William. Thinking about this, I decided to make a change and talk to him about it. I wanted to restart our relationship and relive the happy times we spent together. That evening, I prepared more meticulously than usual. I picked a light silk outfit that was not overly fussy, but still highlighted my femininity. My hair was beautifully brushed and lightly fragrant with the perfume William had complimented me on. Standing in front of the mirror, I adjusted every detail while taking a deep breath to relax down. I felt apprehensive and a little concerned. Will William grasp what I am saying? Would he think I was being too demanding? When I walked into the living room, William was seated on the sofa, reading the newspaper closely. When he noticed me, he looked up, a little shocked, but then smiled. "You look beautiful," he murmured, his earnest tone touching my heart. I sat down next to him and tried to strike up a conversation. We began by talking about lighter topics, such as the day, his work, and little details about the home. However, as we chatted, it became increasingly difficult for me to address the primary issue. When William noticed my uncertainty, I gathered my strength and quietly stated, "William, I want to tell you something. I believe we have grown recently, more remote. Not emotionally, but in terms of intimacy. I believe it's been a long time since we spent any quality time together, and I think it's impacting me. Maybe you feel the same way we do, but we haven't said it." William remained silent for a minute, his eyes softening. He put down the newspaper and turned to face me. "Sophia, I understand what you are saying. Actually, I can feel it too. Work has been really hectic recently, and I may have accidentally missed key tasks. I apologize if you feel unwanted or underappreciated." His remarks helped me feel better. The atmosphere between us seems to get warmer. William grasped my hand with honest eyes. "I know we should spend more time together. I value what we have and do not want to lose it." That night, William and I made love. He was sweet and compassionate, just like in the beginning when we were still deeply in love. I felt the connection return, and I assumed the sense of fear and unease in my heart would go away. But after it was all done, and I lay back on the bed, looking at the black ceiling, that emotion lingered, scorching in my heart. It seemed as if something profound had yet to be settled, a missing piece that kept me from feeling entirely at ease. I could not comprehend myself. Hadn't I discovered the intimacy I sought? However, dissatisfaction persisted as an undertone in my thinking. I glanced at William, who was fast asleep with a tranquil expression on his face, while I continued to toss and turn. Only then did I realize that the difficulty might not have been physical closeness, but something deeper in my psyche. Something is still rising, a difficult-to-define void, and I'm not sure how to fill it. Not wanting to consider any more, I entered the bathroom and let the warm water wash away all of my anxieties. After I finished bathing, I felt a bit lighter, as if I had relieved some of an invisible load. I stepped out of the bathroom, a towel wrapped around me, and the slight aroma of shower gel made me feel more comfortable. But as soon as I stepped into the center of the corridor, the entire house went dark. The electricity went out. The whole space seemed to be swallowed by the suffocating silence. The light from the nightlight in the room also went out, leaving a thick darkness. I hesitated for a moment, feeling my sweaty skin begin to wrinkle in the cool air. I groped my way towards the bedroom, my hand gently sliding across the wall to find support in the darkness. "William," I called softly, but heard no response. The house was too quiet, only the wind whistling softly through the window. Entering the room, I was sure that William was still lying in bed. My feet touched the edge of the bed, and I sat down, reaching out to touch his shoulder. But as soon as my fingertips touched me, a sudden force pulled me back down onto the bed. "William," I exclaimed in surprise. But my voice was cut off by his hot breath on my skin. In the pitch blackness, all my senses seemed to awaken. William's body pressed against mine, strong and determined, as if he wanted to engulf me completely. I could clearly feel the warmth of his body, his rapid breathing close to my ear, and his gestures that were both eager and intense. My skin felt like it was being electrified every time he touched me. A feeling of shyness and trembling spread throughout my body, making me unable to control my thoughts. Everything inside me was suddenly caught in a whirlwind of emotions, vague, intense, and irresistible. The way William touched me, the way he pulled me close and made me feel lost in the darkness. My heartbeat was so strong that it seemed to drown out the sound of the wind outside. I tried to struggle slightly, not to escape, but to regain some sense of reason. But it was William's hot breath and determination that made all my thoughts disappear. I couldn't say a word. My throat choked with the overwhelming moment. In the dark room, time seemed to stop. There were only two people entwined, with no boundaries or distance. I felt the intense desire in the way he held me, and that also awakened a deep instinct within me. For the first time in a long time, I felt myself enveloped in warmth and connection. When it was over, I lay back, feeling tired, but also strange. Suddenly, the light from the bulb turned on when the power came back on, pulling me back to reality. Closing my eyes for a moment to get used to the light, I turned around and froze when I saw the face next to me. It wasn't William, it was Lucas. "Lucas," I exclaimed, my voice lost in surprise. Lucas looked at me, his eyes showing confusion, mixed with a bit of guilt, but also filled with something unnameable. "Sister Sophia," Lucas said softly, then quickly sat up, avoiding my gaze. "What? What is this?" I asked, confused and angry. "Why didn't you say anything? Why are you here?" Lucas looked at me. "Do you know what you just did? This is an unacceptable mistake." Lucas bowed his head. His voice choked, as if he were trying to find an explanation. "I know, sis. I don't want to justify my actions. But you know, every time I see you and Dad together, I wish I was loved like that. I didn't mean to hurt you, but I couldn't control my feelings anymore. I'm sorry." I felt a flood of emotions, confusion, anger, and something like pity. Lucas, I'm not the one who can fill the void in your life. I understand your mixed feelings, but this isn't right. It can't happen again. Do you understand? Lucas raised his head, his eyes full of guilt and despair. I understand, sis. I'm really sorry. I just wanted to feel love the way Dad loved you. But I know I was wrong. I promise. It will never happen again. I took a deep breath, trying to calm myself. Lucas, I won't tell William, but you need to keep your distance so you don't hurt anyone else. This is the last thing I expect from you. Lucas nodded, his eyes filled with remorse. I'm sorry, sis. I'll keep my distance, and I promise it won't happen again. I turned and left Lucas's room, my heart heavy with unnamed emotions. When the door closed behind me, I felt as if all my strength had been drained. I sat down in the hallway, my back against the cold door, my head in my hands. The images that had just happened kept swirling in my mind, making it impossible for me to escape them. I didn't dare think about what had just happened. The guilt weighed heavily on my chest, making it difficult for me to breathe. I couldn't understand how things had come to this. At the climax, when I didn't know it was Lucas, there was a brief moment when I let myself be swept away. A part of me wanted to disappear immediately, wanted to escape from a situation I couldn't control. The image of William, the man who had always loved and trusted me, suddenly appeared in my mind. Feelings of guilt towards him surged strongly, sweeping away all reason. I hugged myself tightly, my shoulders shaking, my eyes staring into space, but unable to focus on anything. How much time passed? I don't know. Only when the numb feeling in my legs pulled me back to reality did I try to take a deep breath, telling myself to stand up. I needed to face the truth with William, with everything that was going on inside me. After all, I couldn't sit here like a fugitive forever. I stood up, absent-mindedly adjusting the towel wrapped around me. Heavy footsteps led me back to the bedroom. The door opened, and the room was bathed in the soft light from the nightlight. William was still lying on the bed, his sleep as peaceful as ever, unaware of the chaos that had just happened outside. I stood there for a long time, looking at him. His face was calm, his lips slightly pursed as if he were dreaming of something beautiful. My heart clenched. How could I let this happen? How could I let my weakness and Lucas's lack of control destroy everything we had built together? I walked lightly to the bed, lying down next to William, the cold feeling in my heart still not gone. Even though he was right here, the familiar feeling of safety was still far away. I closed my eyes, trying to clear my mind of all thoughts to find some peace. But the image of Lucas, his conflicted eyes and apologetic words, still lingered in my mind. I knew that from this moment on, everything would not be the same again. Since that night, the relationship between Lucas and me has become strange. Although neither of us said it, the distance clearly grew. Lucas became reserved and less talkative whenever I was around. He always avoided my eyes and kept his distance in every gesture and every word. As for me, every time I met Lucas, an awkward feeling rose in my heart. I didn't know how to behave so that everything would return to normal, but perhaps that was impossible. William still didn't know anything. He still loved Lucas and me as usual. But I knew both Lucas and I were trying to hide our mixed feelings. Family meals became more silent. The jokes between Lucas and me seemed to have disappeared. The atmosphere in the house became heavier, and William seemed to feel it too. But he didn't ask, only occasionally looking at Lucas and me with a puzzled expression. One morning, when the whole family was having breakfast, Lucas suddenly stopped and put down his cup of coffee on the table. His eyes were more serious than ever, attracting both William's and my attention. "Dad," Sophia Lucas said, his voice calm but determined. "I've thought a lot and want to tell you two about a decision I've made." William put down his knife and fork and looked at his son in surprise. "What do you mean, Lucas?" Lucas looked straight at his father, then turned to me for a moment. "I think it's time for me to leave. I need a new environment to learn and grow. I feel like I can't continue like this here." His words left me speechless. Even though he didn't directly say the reason, I knew what Lucas was implying. A wave of emotion surged through me, but I tried to stay calm. William frowned, a little confused. "Leave? Where do you want to go?" "You're still learning very well at your current company." "I found a course in another city where I can further develop my skills," Lucas explained, his voice even but his eyes strained. It was a decision I thought about carefully. I needed some space, and I thought it was best for everyone. I bowed my head, not daring to look at William or Lucas. His words seemed to stab me with a heavy sense of guilt. William sighed but finally nodded, his voice low. "If that's what you want, I respect your decision. But remember, this house will always be waiting for you to return." Lucas smiled, a small, heavy smile. "I know, Dad, and thank you, both you and Sophia. I'm really sorry if I've caused any inconvenience to anyone with my departure." I looked up, trying to find some strength in my words. "Lucas, if this is what's best for you, I just hope you find what you need. I wish you all the best too." Lucas nodded. His eyes met mine for a moment, then turned away. The day Lucas left, the whole house was quieter than usual. William helped him pack his things, his eyes unable to hide the sadness of a father. I stood by the window, watching Lucas's car roll away, my heart in turmoil. At that moment, I knew that this departure was not only for Lucas to find a future, but also for him to get rid of the feelings he shouldn't have, so that all of us could be freed from the things that no one dared to say out loud. When Lucas left, the house became much quieter. William still maintained his usual lifestyle, but his eyes often turned to the void that Lucas left behind. He often mentioned his son, expressing pride in the new journey Lucas was pursuing. I just smiled, agreeing with him, but deep inside, the feeling of relief mixed with guilt still lingered. As time passed, life gradually returned to its old orbit. William and I found our connection in the little things of everyday life. But every time I think back to what happened, I can't help but wonder if I had been more careful. If I hadn't let myself get lost in the dark corners of my emotions, would things have gone differently? I realize that in life, mistakes can happen at any time, and they not only hurt you, but also affect the people you love the most. The biggest lesson I learned is the need to control your emotions and actions, especially when faced with situations that can easily lead to mistakes that are difficult to correct. I also understand that sometimes confusing emotions do not come from relationships with others, but from internal instability. Instead of avoiding or seeking false comfort, the most important thing is to face yourself and find a way to solve the root of the problem. To everyone, I just want to send sincere advice. Always be honest with your feelings, but also set clear boundaries, no matter the circumstances. Don't let moments of weakness lead you in the wrong direction, because the consequences sometimes affect not only you, but also the people you love. Know how to cherish the relationships around you and nurture them with sincerity and responsibility. Don't let wrong actions or temporary emotions erode the trust that has been built over time. Sometimes a small decision is enough to change a whole life. For me, Lucas passing was not just a temporary solution, but also a strong reminder of the value of self-awareness and mindfulness in action. Life is not always easy, but difficulties and mistakes are also the way for us to grow and learn to love ourselves and those around us more properly. Since then, I have cherished every day I have with William, trying to rebuild a complete family, knowing that the cracks of that day will always be a part of the past. But I believe that with effort and sincerity, I can still do the best for myself and the people I love. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to listen to my story. I cherish every moment of sharing this. Goodbye, and see you again.